When the Bible was written, ladies didn't have mirrors. How would you have gotten along? You either looked at your reflection in a pool of water or polished brass or copper. There was no mercury-backed, chrome-based mirror. So when the Apostle Paul is talking to the church at Corinth in that great chapter 13 about faith and love and hope, and the greatest of these is love, he makes this statement. He says, now we look through a glass darkly. I wonder if, given the time frame, if what he was saying is, when I look at my reflection, it's somewhat skewed. It's just a reflection of me. It's not me, but it is a reflection of me. You know, we're coming to a close on the study of the millennial kingdom. I still got several things that I could do, I might do, but my intention was to kind of wrap it up this morning. We're going to look at three things. We're going to look at the past, we're going to look at the present, and we're going to look at the future. In 1970, there was a popular group called the Carpenters. And in that era, in that genre of pop rock, pop music, they had a song that stayed on the #1 top of Billboard chart for 7 weeks. And they had many #1 hits, but their signature song was "We've Only Just Begun." Now, it might seem a little corny. That's what I told Brother Keith this morning. And that's why I didn't have Brother Logan play the Carpenters this morning, because it might seem a little corny. But when you consider the millennial, we've only just begun. And when you consider your life today, you really are just getting started. Do you realize that this is as good as some people will have it? I had a music guy, I talk about him all the time, in South Texas. He was saved on the way to play for Mickey Gilley. He pulled off a Highway 59 and gave his life to the Lord. And for a while, he couldn't play his bass guitar. He had to get a grip and a handle on how that 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, whatsoever you do, whether you eat or you drink, do it all to the glory of God. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And so he was a great bass player. He could play about any instrument. He could sit down at the piano and just start playing. I'm trying not to covet or be envious. I told him, I said, brother, it's just not fair. Some people seem to have been given all the talent, and I don't have much of any. But the fact of the matter is, he would get up, and he had a signature song. And it was that song that goes something like this. Now, I'm not going to sing it. I'm taking a vacation. That was the name of the song. I don't remember who made it famous, but that was kind of that and Holy, Holy, Holy. And those were his two songs. And when he would get up, he would give somewhat a testimony. Now, preachers always get nervous. You knew that, right, Brother Keith? Preachers always get nervous when the song leader starts talking. Or when the musician begins to talk. Or when the soloist begins to talk. I don't know why that is. I don't get nervous. I'm not the one up there. But here's the thing. He would always make a statement, and it would go something like this. You know, this world is crazy. And there are some people that think that this is, and I'm going to use a phrase, I'm going to tell you where it came from. I've noticed that it's popping up a lot now. There's a phrase, live your best life now. He used to say, before he would sing, that this life is as good as some people are ever going to have it. Because without Christ, this is as good as it's going to get. But with Christ, this is as bad as it can get for us, so to speak. It's only going to improve. And so when I began to look at my wife doing her makeup this morning and the reflection in the mirror, it began, to set off signals. Signals of the things that we sang about, that we preach on, the glory of God. Awesome, wonderful, powerful, almighty, majestic. These are just a few words that have been used to describe a venue out in Las Vegas called the Sphere. It's 366 feet tall, 516 feet wide. It has an LED display of 580,000 pixels. It is the largest LED display in the world. The exterior itself is enough to impress anybody. But the interior is 160,000 times 160,000 in resolution. That's 10 times stronger than your most powerful HD television. It can project 250 million different colors. And it's hosted since 2023. It's hosted several venues from sporting events to concerts. And the people that go in usually come out with this, wow, that was magnificent. It's as close to that on this earth that we can get to describing the glory. When people talk about the glory of God, I used to think I knew what that meant. And I guess I do in some ways. In the Hebrew, the word means weight. When you think of glory and when you think of the glory of God, and we've touched on this especially about the millennial, when you think about the glory of God, you think about light, don't you? You think about a light that's shining, that's so majestic, that it's awesome. But in the Hebrew, the word is kavod, and it means the weight of God's nature. In the Greek, the word is doxa. And it means the weight of God's nature as it is translated into his divine attributes. I thought I understood what glory meant until I read those definitions. The glory of God, what is that? What is that? The sphere, as great of an object as that is, pales in comparison to the glory of God. We're going to look at that glory this morning. We're going to look at this past glory revealed. We're going to look at the present glory reflected. And then we're going to look at the future glory that is radiant. When I think about Moses and I think about his trek up that mountain to come into the presence of God, I'm in awe. Because it was the glory of God in the past that was revealed. Paul would say in 1 Corinthians chapter number 13, that behold, now we look in a glass darkly. We look in a mirror and we see reflections. We get bits and pieces of the glory of God. We see it in people. We see it as evidence as the Holy Spirit's working. But we just get glimpses of that. In the past, Moses, and we're going to read a few verses to kind of set this up. In Exodus chapter number 33, verse 12, Moses said unto the Lord, see that thou sayest to me, bring up this people. God, you want me to bring this people up. They're not going to follow me. They're not going to follow me. Bring up this people. Thou hast not let me know whom wilt thou send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, if thy presence go not with me, don't carry me up there. In other words, if you're not with me, I don't want to go. I'll fall flat on my face. That's my emphasis. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not in that thou goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name. That's a good place to stop and ask a question. Does the Lord know me by name? And Moses then said in verse 18, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. Show me thy glory. Show me the weight and the magnificence of your nature and your divine attributes. When we talk about the glory of God and the majestic shine, and we talk about shining for Jesus and being a light that's set upon a hill, we know that we are a reflection of that light. We are not that light. We are reflections of that light. In the past, Moses asked God for something that God did for him. He said, in essence, I would like for you to show me your glory. Takes a lot of nerve to ask God for that. In chapter 34, I'll just read a few verses. We'll look in verse number 34. Well, I want to read 5 through 7 first. The Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty. Remember that. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and to the fourth generation. Moses made haste, bowed his head toward the earth, and worshiped. What's the result? Verse 29. It came to pass when Moses came down from the Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with them. God told Moses, nobody has seen my face. In fact, this is what we better do. We better put you in the cleft of a rock. And we better hide you from my presence, because you cannot contain my glory. And so the back parts of God passed by Moses, and the glory of God shone. And I want you to not just think about light, but I want you to think about the weight in the Hebrew. The weight of God's magnificence passed before Moses. He didn't even realize he didn't have a mirror. He didn't look in a pool of water or a creek by the wayside. He just simply came down out of the mountain, and Aaron said, whoa, wait a minute. The glory of God is revealed. Have you looked in the mirror? Have you seen your face? Your face shines. It shines. And Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh unto him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him, and Moses talked with them. And afterward, all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them the commandment of the Lord. That's the glory of God revealed in the past. It was revealed in the tabernacle in Exodus chapter 40. That glory was revealed in the tabernacle in Exodus chapter 40. I'm just going to take a few verses 34 and 35. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. There it is again. The glory of God filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation because the cloud was there. In fact, no one could enter the tent because the glory of God was there. And we look at the glory of God in times past in the tabernacle. We look at it in the temple in 1 Kings chapter 8. The glory of God appeared. There was bits and pieces, and there's reflection of that glory. And remember, not just the magnificence of the shine, but the majestic divine nature, the weight of God's majesty was revealed to those priests in the temple. Ezekiel had seen the glory of God in chapter 1, verse 26 and 28. He got a glimpse of this glory of God. Now, what is that like in the present? And I got this from a book I'm reading. There's a city, it's a town really. It's Rjukan, Norway. And it sets up, I had to look it up, it sets up in the mountains in Norway. And for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the pitch of the earth and the mountains are so high that 3 to 4 months out of the year, the sun doesn't shine. They live in the shadow of the sun. They never see the sun. In 2013, somebody got the idea to put these giant mirrors up and angle them on the top of the mountain to reflect the sun, so that since 2013, it's not only used for solar energy, but it's used to project sunlight from the mirrors. Well, what's it like for you and me? What is the glory of God like now? It's a reflection of mirrors. It's a refraction. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Behold, now we look through a glass darkly. Matthew chapter 5, 14 through 16, we quoted a while ago. We are the revealed glory of God. But just glimpses of His glory. So when I look at those and I reflect and I let my light shine before men that they might see what? Me? No. So, well, it's pretty hard to look at you and not see you. We are reflections of God's glory. We're like a mirror. We're not that glory. We're a reflection of that glory in this present life. But I've been spending about, 14 weeks in speaking about the future glory, about the glory that is revealed in us. That future glory is a glory that God gives to His chosen. Isaiah chapter 60, and we've spent some time there, and I think it's probably a good thing that we have. Hopefully, we brought about some clarification in those first few verses. Arise, shine, for thy light is come. We're talking about the future glory of God. Arise and shine, for thy light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and His glory shall be seen upon thee. That's the future reflection of God's glory, and it is radiant. Verse 5, then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because of the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee, and the forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. God's past glory was just revealed. God's present glory is just reflected. But God's future glory is radiant, and it's revealed through us, through the saved of God. Now, I didn't want to trip you up last week because, admittedly, there are some things that I still don't fully understand. And so it's best that I simply trust God in that. Did you know that when we're talking about age, you said, I didn't think we were talking about age. We will be in that day. Did you know in Genesis, I think it's around Genesis chapter 5 or chapter 6, God limited man's age to be around 120 years. Moses, in his psalm in chapter 90, he said that if by reason of strength you live 80, that's 80 years, you've done well. So then teach us to count our days. Why do we count our days? Because days should count for something. I did a little breakdown, not break dance, breakdown. Methuselah lived 969 years. Genesis 5:27. Adam, 930 years. Seth, 912 years. Jared, that's Adam's great-great-grandson, 962 years. Lamech, that's Noah's dad, 777 years. And Noah himself, 950 years. And we look at that longevity and we think, well, we'll never see that again. To the saved and the resurrected, to the saint of God in the millennial, you'll not have to ever worry about it again. There's a lady by the name of Maria, I think, let me get her name right if I can pronounce it right, Branyas. She died last year in August. She was the oldest living woman on earth. She was 117 years old or young. Naturally, her age drew the attention of scientists. And so they began to look at her strands of DNA, over 6 million strands of DNA, to try to find out what gave her this longevity, what gave her long life. There she is. You know what she said? Outside of natural yogurt, I've stayed away from two things: toxic food and toxic people. You and I are not going to have to worry about that. We're not going to have to worry about age anymore. It seems like, and I don't want you all to walk out of here worse than you came in, but it seems like every time I wake up, I've got another pain somewhere. I swear I get beat up at night, and I'm blaming her or the dog. It's one or two people. They beat you up at night. In the millennial, we're not going to have to worry about that, and our forever has started. And the glory of God that was revealed in the past and the glory of God that's reflected in our present will now be radiant because it will be upon us. It's revealed in us, His glory. And His glory will shine brightly. I know it's a little corny again. And I've already talked to you about the pre-flood conditions and about returning to Eden. But I'm familiar with a song by Billy Joel, "Only the Good Die Young." Anybody ever heard that? And what does that mean? Well, it's not an exact quote, but I'm going to look at it and I'm going to show you something because I had never really noticed it before until I started studying the millennial. The righteous perish. The righteous perish. Now, I didn't call you righteous or good. God does. The righteous perish, and no man layeth to heart. And merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. That's the reason. How many of you know people that were taken from this life too soon? Isaiah is reflecting upon something. That much of this life, I have a pastor friend that's been with the Lord now almost 25 years. He passed away, I think he was 54. He was the first pastor I worked with, that we worked for. And we couldn't understand. Why so soon? Why now? Some of the reason, not all of the reason, some of the reason is to protect from the evil that's to come. When I look at the future glory, the glory of God that's revealed in us, I see the magnificence of the weight of his divine attributes. Sometimes it's all that I can do to get out of bed, look in the mirror, shave, and get ready to come to church. I'm just being honest. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that I'm finding it more difficult. Anybody else like that? Yeah. We need to get a church full of young people so I can have another side to this coin. What I'm trying to get you to see is that the glory of God that's revealed in the past and the present and the future, that future glory that's ours, is the weight of his holiness and the magnificence and the majesty of his divine attributes. And you will not just be a reflection of that, you will radiate that in the millennial and past. Now, what you all were waiting for, I'm going to give you right now. To the deaf, what happens in the millennial? To the deaf, to the blind, Isaiah 24, verse 18. The deaf will hear, the blind will see. What happens to those that are lame? Isaiah 35, verse 5 and 6. The lame shall walk. What happens to those whose wounds are healed? Jeremiah 30, verse 17. His presence makes for the longevity of life. Remember, two types of people in the millennial: the saved and the resurrected, and those that came through the tribulation that still have earthly bodies. And outside of those, and I'll use this word once, incorrigible, that have somehow suffered death, and we looked at that at length in Isaiah 65, he will heal the nations. And death itself will be a rarity. And I'm going to close with something that some probably think I should have started with. Revelation chapter 21. As we go through the millennial, it's a 1,000-year period. We know what happens at the end of that. And we now know why it happens. I gave you that last week. Returning to Eden. We know why it happens, but Satan is released from his prison, and God once and for all and forever takes him out. And he takes out all of those that reject that glorious light of the gospel, because the gospel is what's preached during the millennial. So what does John see? Now, this is different from the millennial, and I need you to understand that. I saw a new heaven. A new heaven. You know, we're just talking about a renovated heaven and earth, Jerusalem. We're talking about remodeling for 1,000 years. But now John sees something entirely different. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. That's interesting. And I, John, saw a holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. Now listen, and he dwells with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And he shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he sat upon the throne, and he said, Behold, I make all things new. I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. He said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst for the fountain of the water of life freely. And the rest, they say, is history, his story. Lord, I recognize that your glory is difficult to describe. Men much greater than myself struggle with it. The weight of a divine nature, the majesty, the manifestation of your divine attributes. Lord, I thank you that I know there's coming a day when we'll dwell in your presence. We'll not be fearful. There'll be no remorse. We'll not be afraid. Death will have no hold over any of us. And you'll dwell with us. And the radiance of your glory will be revealed in your people. Now, I pray that as we bring the series to an end, that we look up, that just around the corner might be the beginning of our eternity. We're going to thank you for opening our eyes and our hearts to the truth of this earthly kingdom. I pray that as you will prevail, that you, as you are too good to do wrong and too wise to make a mistake, that you look at us and you see us as reflections of your glory. One day, we recognize that glory will be radiated upon every face and upon every heart without fear, but with joy. Lord, prepare us, I pray, for that day. In Jesus' name, amen. And that's the end of a 3-month study.